Broncos country, welcome to the Week 9 recap where the Denver Broncos have just defeated the Houston Texans by a final score of 18-15. Now, this was a very interesting game, not the prettiest game to watch, more of a defensive battle, and we'll get into all that nitty-gritty stuff as the recap goes on, right? The defense, phenomenal, held the Texans to only kicking field goals the entire game, right? Got a big goal line stop early. We'll get all to that in a minute here, but I'm trying to get this video out as soon as possible because this week is a very, very, very quick turnaround, right? We got the trade deadline coming up in a few days, and we'll have to see what happens there, but I want to get a video out for you guys on that. I also want to post another mock draft here in a few days, whether that's pre or post trade deadline. I want to get one of those out. And then we have the Thursday night football game where I have to get the game preview out very, very soon. So this is a very quick turnaround for me. So I want to get the Denver Broncos Week 9 recap out of the way. It says 8 here. That is a mistake, so I apologize about this graphical error, right? It should be Week 9, but let's go ahead. Let's jump straight into this recap. First things first is want to say prayers for CJ Stroud. I hate seeing any player get injured. Obviously, he left the game and is in concussion protocol. And hate seeing a player get injured, whether it's for the Broncos or against the Broncos. You never want to see a player go down with an injury. So prayers to CJ Stroud, and I hope he gets better very, very soon. But yeah, that's how I want to start this video. Let's start off by looking at the box score. Obviously, on the left there, that is Kareem Jackson. He was at the game, but he was spotted wearing orange and blue. So supporting both of his teams maybe, but yeah, wanted to throw K-Jack in here as the player that I like to throw here by the box score. But you can see this was a very, very close game, a game where the Broncos offense did struggle, right? Barely outgained the Texans in total yards. We had less passing yards, but more rushing yards, and we averaged more yards per play, which is very interesting. And you can see almost identical stats, 15 first downs for each team. Texans did convert on a fourth down early in the game, ran about 11 more plays than the Broncos. We did sack their quarterback more times, but we had the same amount of punts, the same amount of penalties committed. Our penalties did result in the Texans getting more yards, but the fumble, obviously that was a special teams muff by Michael Bandy. We'll talk about that later. Bo Nix obviously had a pretty bad interception and could have honestly thrown a little bit more. And then the Texans had almost 10 minutes more of total possession time. But that is the initial look at the box score. Let's dive in depth here a little bit on the recap, starting off with the quarterback, Bo Nix. And you guys know how much of a Bo Nix fan I am, but he had a really, really rough game, and I don't think the stats justify how bad it was, right? He went 18 for 37, which is a 48.7% completion percentage. Now, granted, as I mentioned in the game preview, I think the Texans have one of the best secondaries in the league, right? With, obviously, Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter, Jalen Petrie. You got Kalen Bullock as a safety. That is a phenomenal, phenomenal secondary for the Houston Texans. So it is not going to be easy to pass against them. That with Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter rushing off of the edges, not an easy defense. They are one of the best defenses in the league, but I would expect Bo to play a little bit better than this, right? Only had 173 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, but I remember at least 2 plays off the top of my head of passes that fell incomplete that definitely could have been interceptions. There was one to Troy Franklin down the right-hand side, and there were other plays that, you just wish Bo would not have thrown those turnover-worthy plays, right? Obviously, great defense. They were fooling him. They had a great plan in terms of fooling Bo Nix on the defensive side of the football. But yeah, when it came down, when it mattered most there in the fourth quarter, Bo locked in, right? Found Sutton, obviously, before half for the touchdown. Found R.J. Harvey for another touchdown in the fourth quarter, and then was able to drive the Broncos down to set them up with a game-winning field goal on the final drive of the game. I will say, though, one thing that I wish Bo did more, and I saw a lot of Broncos fans on Twitter asking for this, is Bo needs to take off and run, right? There was that very close call where he almost had the illegal forward pass. When I saw it live, I thought they were going to call the illegal forward pass. And then there's other times where it looks like he could take off, scramble, gain a few yards, where it looks like he's about to tuck it and run, and then he just really quickly makes a quick throw, hard throw, and it's not going to be the easiest catch. It's going to come from a weird angle like a sidearm. So there were other times when Bo made a pass that I wish he would have just taken off and ran with the football to gain extra yards. So would like to see Bo Nix use his legs more. Obviously, he did that on the final drive to help us get in to that field goal range. But yeah, Bo Nix didn't have his best game. I'm hoping he can bounce back, especially, after a strong 5 quarters, right? Fourth quarter against the Giants, the entire game against the Cowboys. You're hoping to carry that momentum against the Texans, maybe not have as dominant as an offensive performance, but still look solid, right? But Bo Nix struggled today, and I'm hoping he can bounce back next week on Thursday night against the division rival Vegas Raiders. As for the rushing game, J.K. Dobbins was the main rusher, had 15 carries for 61 yards. He averaged 4.1 yards per carry, had 1 reception for -2 yards. But my big concern, and we'll talk about this later, was abandoning the running game very early on. J.K. Dobbins was averaging like 5 yards per carry early in that first drive. And then it seemed the rest of the first half, J.K. Dobbins didn't get another carry, which confused me, right? You want to establish the run, especially against a good Texans defense where you're not wanting Bo Nix to pass at a whole lot. And when he does, you throw in the play action and you help open up passing lanes for Bo Nix. I'm sad that we abandoned it early in the game. Started to come back for it more in the second half, and J.K. Dobbins really did help us set up to win this game with his rushes, right? Averaging 4.1 a carry for 61 yards is fantastic. But I'm sad that we went away from it early in the game. I thought we should have stuck with the running game, and a lot of people thought so too. But J.K. Dobbins had another fantastic game for the Orange and Blue. Then we go to R.J. Harvey, who didn't have as dominant of a game because he really didn't get any rushing attempts, right? Had 2 carries for 5 yards. But in terms of the receiving game, that's where Harvey thrived this week with 5 receptions for 51 yards. And, of course, the touchdown on that wheel route where he beat Henry Te'o for the touchdown to tie the game, or I guess not tie the game, but to get us in 2-point range in order to go for the 2-point conversion to tie the game at that point in, obviously, the game. I said the game a lot there, but R.J. Harvey was more of a factor in the receiving game rather than the rushing game. Moving on to the receiving game, Sutton, he only had 1 reception, and it was that 30-yard touchdown he had at the end of the first half around that time. Targeted 6 times, but Bo Nix was sporadic. He was throwing the ball everywhere. There was some that were a little bit off target, right? Opening drive, Sutton had to dive for a catch that was eventually ruled incomplete. So only had the 1 reception, but it was a big reception, a 30-yard touchdown strike. Then you had Troy Franklin, who had 4 receptions on 10 targets, 27 yards, averaging 6.8 a catch, and obviously caught the 2-point conversion to tie the game at 15 during, obviously, late in the second half. Then you got Pat Bryant, who was phenomenal, and not just in the receiving game, right? As a blocker, Pat Bryant was dominant, helping out the run game, right? When we were running out wide with J.K. Dobbins, Pat Bryant was doing a fantastic job at blocking, and then he also had a solid game through the air, right? 2 receptions for 20 yards on 3 targets. Pat Bryant, solid game. Obviously got more opportunities with Marvin Mims out in concussion protocol. Would have liked to see him get more targets, but again, Bo Nix wasn't looking his best today, was pretty sporadic with the football. So I thought Pat Bryant did pretty solid with the amount of targets and receptions that he got. But the defense, man, the defense is what kept us in the game by far, right? The Texans, they kept driving down. I think their opening drive or their second drive, I think it was their second drive, right? Because Ka'imi Fairbairn, he missed his first kick. Then the Texans drove down, and the defense made a fantastic goal line stand, right? To me, the players of the game, if I had to give one, it would be a tie between Zach Allen and Talanoa Hufanga. And we'll get to those guys individually here later. I want to talk about the defense as a whole. They, by far and away, kept us in this game, as I mentioned, right? Limiting the Texans to only scoring points via the field goal, right? They had 4 total sacks on the game, right? Malcolm Roach and Dondre Tillman each got half a sack. Dre Greenlaw got a sack. He was getting in there. Jonathan Cooper, obviously, he had a sack, and Zach Allen had a sack as well. So when you're going up against the Texans, right, who honestly, they were moving the ball quite a lot. They bent, but they didn't break as a unit. They were fantastic. Talanoa Hufanga, he had that one crazy drive. He dropped a couple of interceptions, which you would like to see him grab and come down with in the future. But Hufanga was everywhere, and stopping the pass, right, was helping in terms of stepping up, getting into the box, and stopping the run game. Talanoa Hufanga was everywhere. And then Zach Allen was doing a fantastic job stopping the rush, but also providing that interior pass rush to get to the quarterback. Zach Allen was fantastic. The defense, big shout out to them, right? I think the only negative that I had was Alex Singleton gave up that huge reception. I think it was on their second drive to Dalton Schultz, who got them into the red zone or close to it for them to eventually drive down, held them to the field goal. But man, there were some miscues by Alex Singleton. Would like to see, obviously, Dre Greenlaw get more time and even start over Singleton. But big shout out to the defense. What can you say? Especially with Pat Surtain, the corners of Riley Moss, Jahdae Barron, Jaquan McMillan, and Chris Abrams-Strange. Shout out to all of them. They stepped up. Abrams-Strange struggled a little bit, I thought, but overall, without Pat Surtain, you're losing that luxury that you have with Surtain, obviously. But I thought they did a very solid job stepping up. Brandon Jones and Talanoa Hufanga helped on the back end. The defense is the reason why we won this game, and that's how the Broncos are going to win these games, right? We've lost these close games at the start of the season, and even last year, we would lose these close, heartbreaking games. This year, we're finding ways to win those games, and then a big reason for that is the defense limiting points and limiting scores, right? When you can have your opponent only score by kicking field goals, that's a great sign, especially when your offense is struggling. You're going to keep it close that way. Obviously, you'd like the offense to score while you're limiting them to field goals, and honestly, even hoping not to have them kick field goals. But the defense was spectacular. I'm starting to ramble now and have been for a while. But big shout out to the defense. My player of the game, it would be a tie, like I mentioned earlier, between Hufanga and Zach Allen. Here are my concerns, though, after today, because after an ugly win like this, I guess not necessarily ugly, the Texans are a good defense, but after a defensive battle where the offense struggled, the defense looked fine. In my opinion, they look great, actually. For me, it's the penalties, right? We got to eliminate these stupid penalties, right? These infraction penalties that's going to happen pre-snap, and then these stupid penalties like the Fraboni late hit on a kickoff return. That can't happen, right? You got to limit those stupid penalties. You can't give your opponent free and extra yards. But speaking of special teams, the special teams play is very concerning, and I think myself as well as a lot of Broncos fans are losing their patience with special teams coordinator Darren Rizzi. Today alone, they had a blocked field goal, right? The Broncos even talked about it, like, hey, you can't let them get through. They are a good team at blocking kicks. And the first field goal attempt, a 51-yarder, was blocked. The second one, there were many kickoff returns that the Texans got free yardage of because the Broncos couldn't defend the kickoff returns. And then the biggest one was the Michael Bandy muff before halftime. You're getting a punt. You're hoping to go down and score before halftime. Who knows if that would have happened. But because of the muff, you set the Texans up in excellent field position where they didn't do anything with it, but because of the field position that they had, they were able to kick a field goal before half to extend their lead. So those were three special teams plays that really benefited the Texans and hurt the Broncos. So yeah, special teams does need to clean up. Sounds like Sean Payton's going to be taking action, according to a quote that he had in his post-game press conference. Don't want to quote it in here because I don't have it written down and I don't want to misquote him. But it sounds like they're going to be getting special teams on track very seriously. And then the third thing for me is the play calling and execution for the Broncos. I thought the play calling, it was actually fine. Right, Sean Payton, I thought he was continuing what he did last week against Dallas. Maybe a little bit too many screens and jet sweeps and stuff that, it's just the scenario that he uses them. is a little bit frustrating in terms of the screen and the jet sweeps. But for the most part, I liked him continuing what he did in the fourth quarter against the Giants and then throughout the entire game of the Cowboys. The execution by Bo in the offense, though, does need to get better, and that does start with Bo at the quarterback position. He was getting pressured, but he wasn't making the greatest throws against a really good secondary, so you want to see the execution of the play calls continue, but the big thing that I had against Sean in terms of the play calling is, as I mentioned earlier, abandoning the run game when Dobbins was running the ball very, very well and the offensive line was blocking for the run very, very well. I think you have to stick with it. I know you want Bo to throw the football, and I want to see Bo throw the football too because it's very entertaining to watch pass plays, in my opinion. But you have to stick with the run. You can't abandon it that early. I think, one drive into the game we abandoned it, so that was my biggest concern with Sean Payton's play calling. But yeah, that is going to be my recap for the Denver Broncos versus the Houston Texans, right? This is just happening right after the game. This is kind of after I made the graphics and stuff. This is right off the top of the head of what I wanted to talk about. I might have forgot something big that happened in the game that I'm going to say in a few minutes or maybe a couple hours after posting. It's just like, dang, I really wish I might have mentioned that. But what can you do? If you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel down below as the support is greatly appreciated. Hopefully soon, we're going to make videos on the trades the Broncos make at the deadline, if they make any. Hopefully they do. There's the knock on wood. And then I do want to post a mock draft as well as the game preview for the Thursday night game against the Raiders coming up later this week. So, yeah, that's a little bit of a ramble. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe. My name is Parker, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.